My name is Elena Carter. I'm 29 years old, and I live in Denver, Colorado. I run a logistics company that used to belong to my dad, Carter Freight Lines. It's not flashy like tech or glamorous like fashion, but it's solid. Trucks, routes, warehouses. We move the things that keep the country running. When people ask how I ended up in this industry, I usually smile and say, my father taught me to build things that last. But the truth? I didn't choose this life. It chose me the day cancer took him. He passed when I was 24, 1 month shy of my MBA graduation. He was supposed to be there with a sign that said "Boss Lady" in big black letters. Instead, I walked across that stage with red eyes and a company to run. The first 2 years were rough. Employees didn't know if I could lead. Vendors questioned every decision. And my grief, it clung to me like fog. But I kept showing up. I learned payroll, contracts, dispatching, everything. I'd sit in the truck yard at 6 a.m. with coffee and a thermos, just to learn from the drivers. Now, 5 years later, we've expanded across 3 states. I have 70 employees. We survived COVID, fuel spikes, and 2 major client restructures. I even won a regional award for Most Resilient Woman-Owned Business. But none of that made me feel like I had arrived. Not really. Until I met Nathan. It was at a regional logistics conference in Fort Worth. I was giving a talk on sustainable routing when I noticed him in the second row, clean-cut, navy suit, the only guy not checking his phone. After the panel, he walked straight up to me. "You speak like someone who's lived every mile you talk about," he said. I raised an eyebrow. Well, I did learn from the best. He smiled. Would the best mind grabbing a coffee? I almost said no. But something about the way he said it, steady, respectful, made me pause. That coffee turned into a 2-hour conversation about our lives, our work, even our childhoods. He told me he grew up near Phoenix, that his parents were in real estate, and that he used to travel with his uncle in a moving truck just to see the world. We started texting. Then dinners. Then weekend hikes. I wasn't looking for love. I hadn't been on a real date in over a year. But something about Nathan felt different. He listened. He never tried to one-up me. And when I talked about the pressure of running a business solo, he didn't flinch. My friends liked him. My team liked him. He even helped me clean out the old filing cabinets. We dated quietly for almost 10 months. No big announcements. Just slow weekends, hikes near Red Rocks, and dinner at my place. Then one Sunday afternoon he surprised me. I had just finished doing payroll when he showed up with sunflowers, my dad's favorite. We were in the middle of my dusty garage, surrounded by old maps and boxes of outdated safety vests. He dropped to one knee and said, "Elena, your strength humbles me. But your heart, that's what I want to spend my life protecting." I stood there frozen, the ring box open in his hands, my fingers still holding a half-signed vendor contract. I didn't say yes right away. I waited 3 days. Thought about the company. Thought about my walls. Thought about what love had cost me before. But then I thought about something else. Maybe letting someone in didn't mean letting go of who I was. Maybe love wasn't a weakness. Maybe, just maybe, it was the next chapter. So I said yes. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to hope. But something didn't sit right. It started small. Nathan became curious. About budgets. About passwords. About vendor contracts. At first, I chalked it up to excitement. He was marrying into the business, right? Of course, he wanted to help. Still, I kept certain things separate, quiet instincts passed down from my dad. Nathan never pressured. Never pushed. Just gently asked things like, "Do you think you'll still run the company after we're married? Or will you hire a COO?" I'd laugh it off. This company's my firstborn. There's no COO coming in unless I train them myself. He smiled, but I noticed the flicker in his eyes. It was faint, like a match struck too close to the wind. 1 month before the wedding, Nathan invited me to dinner at his parents' house. He called it a family bonding night. His tone was cheerful. Too cheerful. Still, I agreed. That Friday, I drove out to their place, an oversized stone house on the edge of Boulder. Long driveway, white pillars, the kind of front porch that looks like it's only for show. It was my first time visiting them formally. As I parked, I reminded myself to stay calm. "Just dinner," I whispered. "It's just dinner." Veronica opened the door before I could knock. "Darling," she said in that high-pitched, stretched smile way. "You look beautiful. So classy, so modest. Nathan said you were all business, but I see elegance too." She kissed my cheek before I could respond. Inside, the table was already set. White napkins, gold-trimmed plates, a bottle of red breathing near the center. Nathan's dad, Charles, came out from the study, shaking my hand like he was closing a deal. His grip was strong, the kind of strong that tries too hard. "Good to finally sit down like real family," he said. Nathan stood by the fireplace, giving me a small wink. I smiled, trying to ignore the twist in my stomach. Dinner started normal enough. Roast chicken, roasted vegetables, some soft jazz in the background. We talked about weather, wedding venues, and guest lists. Veronica asked about my dress. Charles asked if my company would be closed for the honeymoon. Then came the shift. "So," Veronica began, setting her fork down gently, "I hope you're planning to take some real time off after the wedding." I looked up. "A week or so. Maybe 10 days. She gave a soft laugh. "No, I mean real time off. From everything. You've done so much, sweetie. But marriage? It's a full-time job, too." I blinked. "You mean the company?" "Well," she said with a little wave of her hand, "after the wedding, things will shift. Priorities change. You won't be able to run everything and still be a good wife." "That's not fair to Nathan." I glanced at Nathan. He didn't look surprised. In fact, he nodded slightly. "We've talked about it," he said. "You've built something incredible, Elena. Maybe it's time you stepped back just a little." My throat tightened. "I'm not stepping away," I said.
"Calm."
"Even."
Charles leaned in then.
His voice dropped, friendly but firm. "You'll be signing everything over to Nathan eventually, right? I mean, it's best to do it now. Clean paperwork. Better for taxes. It keeps it all in the family." Silence. My fork hovered in midair. I turned slowly. "I'm sorry. What did you just say?" He chuckled. "Oh, don't make it sound so dramatic. You two are getting married. It's not like we're strangers." Veronica jumped in. "It's not a demand, sweetie. Just a suggestion. We're trying to think long-term. Generational wealth. Future kids. Family harmony." I stared at my plate. They weren't talking about marriage. They were talking about ownership. Control. Nathan reached for my hand under the table. "We're not rushing anything," he said, soft and smooth. "It's just something to consider." I pulled my hand away. "I need air," I said and stood. Veronica's smile dropped for the first time. I walked out to the patio, trying not to shake. The evening air was cool, but my skin burned. They wanted me to hand it all over. Quietly. Before the wedding. Before I had time to think. Like I was some stepping stone to something bigger. Nathan came out a moment later. "Are you okay?" he asked. I didn't look at him. "Did you know they were going to say all that?" I asked. He hesitated. "They brought it up before. I told them it was too soon. But they mean well." "No, Nathan," I said. "They mean business." He tried to laugh it off. "They're just old-fashioned." I turned to face him. "And what are you?" He didn't answer. We drove back in silence. I stared out the window, mind racing. This wasn't love. This was a negotiation. And I had just seen the fine print. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't cancel the wedding. I didn't even confront Nathan again. But something had shifted. Something permanent. That dinner didn't just change my plans. It changed the way I looked at everything. And suddenly, I wasn't the girl planning a wedding. I was the woman preparing for war. After that dinner, everything felt different. Nathan acted the same, maybe even sweeter. He brought me lunch at the office, helped with errands, sent good morning texts. But under all that charm, something new was showing. A quiet persistence. "Have you had time to look at that prenup Mom mentioned?" he asked one evening while we were watching a documentary.
I paused.
"You mean the one your mom mentioned, not you?" He laughed. "Well, she's a little intense sometimes. But it's just a formality. We both have assets. It protects both of us." He handed me a printed draft. "Take your time. Just something to think about." I didn't open it right away. I waited until he left. Then I flipped through it page by page. The wording was vague. Too vague. One section in particular stood out. Shared spousal business assets to be evaluated by mutual agreement post-marriage.
I knew what that meant.
They wanted to get in early, plant the legal seeds, and once I had a ring on my finger, start growing vines around my company. The next day at work, I noticed Nathan had left a note on my desk. "Updated vendor list. Thought this might help." That was odd. He never touched vendor lists. I opened the spreadsheet. Some names looked off. New supplier names I didn't recognize. Notes written in a different format than mine. But the biggest red flag? He had renamed the file something subtle. Updated_finance_tracker. A file name that could be sent or signed without raising eyebrows. I closed it and sat still for a moment. My gut was talking. And this time I was listening. Later that week, one of my longest-standing employees, Carlos, knocked on my office door. "You got a minute, boss?" "Always." He stepped in, shut the door gently, and sat across from me. "I don't know if it's my place," he said carefully, "but someone's been asking a lot of questions." I raised an eyebrow.
Who?
"That fiancé of yours. Nathan." I didn't blink. "What kind of questions?" Carlos leaned forward. "He's been asking dispatch guys how often you're on site, who has access to the books, when bonuses get wired, stuff that's not his business." I nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me." He stood. "You've always had our backs. Just returning the favor." When he left, I sat for a long time, staring at the screen, staring at nothing. By the next morning, I was looking at every file Nathan had helped with, every document he had touched, every email he forwarded. And something inside me started to click into place. This wasn't curiosity. This was preparation. I checked the prenup again. Reread the section on asset separation. Then I noticed a line I'd missed before. Marital responsibilities include a transitionary period for joint oversight of family enterprises. Joint oversight.
Joint.
The door wasn't just open. He was already stepping in. That night, I received a new email from Veronica. Subject line: "Quick thoughts from our lawyer's smiling face with smiling eyes." Inside was a note. "Hi, sweet girl. Just reviewed the prenup with our family attorney." He added a couple helpful clauses. Nothing big, just protecting everyone's best interests. "Let us know if you have questions." Attached was a new draft. I didn't open it. I forwarded it to someone else instead, my late father's lawyer, Mr. Grayson. He'd been retired for years, but always told me, "If you ever need a sharp pair of eyes, call me."
So I did.
The next day, he called me back. "Do not sign that," he said flatly. "They're hiding more in this language than they're showing. And Elena, yes, don't hand over anything. Not yet. Not ever." After Grayson's warning, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. Zoe snuggled against me in her crib, and all I kept thinking was, who are these people? Asterisk. Nathan's kindness, his charm, his soft voice, it all played in my head like a well-rehearsed script. And I started to wonder, was it all just that? A performance? The next morning, I called Grayson again. "I need more than gut feelings," I told him. "If they've done this before, I want proof." "I'll get started," he promised. "Give me 48 hours. But I didn't sit back. I started digging myself too. I searched public records, property databases, and business filings. Every name connected to Nathan, his parents, his brother, anything I could find. That's when I noticed something odd. Nathan's dad, Charles Whitmore, had opened and closed 3 different LLCs in 4 years, all in different states. One in Nevada, one in Arizona and one in Illinois, each tied to consulting work. Each shut down within 12 months. So, I kept digging. Each LLC had another name attached, Derek Whitmore, Nathan's older brother. I searched Derek next. And that's when I found it, a civil lawsuit filed in Ohio 3 years ago. The woman's name was Claire Hastings. She was 33. Inherited her family's real estate firm after her dad's passing. 2 months after she got engaged to Derek, she quietly signed over partial ownership of the firm. Just to help with logistics, she said in her statement. 6 months after the wedding, Derek filed for divorce and tried to walk away with a controlling share. Claire fought back and won. Barely. But the case was sealed shortly after, buried in court records. I found another case. Different name, Vanessa Riddle. Different state, Utah. Same pattern, sudden romance, fast engagement, family assistance, suspicious contracts. Each time, the same last names appeared in business docs. Whitmore. I printed everything. Dates. Names. Case summaries. I laid them out on my office floor and stared. It wasn't greed.
It was a strategy.
They targeted women with no strong living relatives, inherited businesses, or large asset transfers. Women like me. I called Grayson again. You were right, I said, my voice low. They've done this before. And not just once. He was quiet for a second, then said, then it's time to stop playing defense. What do you mean? You act normal. You keep smiling. You let them keep thinking you're the next easy mark. My hands tightened on the phone. And then you show them who they actually messed with. That night, Nathan came over for dinner. I served lasagna, played soft music, wore the cozy sweater he said he loved. He smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "You're glowing tonight." I smiled back. "I'm just happy. Everything feels calm." He poured us both wine. "You've done so much with the business. It's incredible, really." I nodded. I was actually thinking about finally stepping back a little, letting someone else help with the heavy stuff. His eyes lit up. "Yeah? That's amazing. You deserve to rest." I took a sip of wine, still smiling. He had no idea. 2 days later, Veronica texted me. "Veronica, hi honey. I found a revised prenup template that really simplifies everything. Thought it might help move things along, 2 hearts sending it now." I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it straight to Grayson. The reply came back in minutes. Clause 4 tries to waive spousal fraud liability. Do not sign. They were getting bolder, because they thought I was getting weaker. But I wasn't. I was getting ready. I walked into my office, closed the door, and opened a fresh folder on my laptop. I titled it, Whitmore Pattern Evidence. And right there, I started pasting it all. PDFs, emails, screenshots, property filings, sealed court summaries. I wasn't just gathering proof. I was building a case. Because if they were going to treat me like a stepping stone, I'd make sure they tripped. I was going to make sure, this time, they picked the wrong woman. From the outside, I played the part perfectly. I smiled at brunches. I laughed at Nathan's dad jokes. I even complimented Veronica's tacky pink necklace when she showed up unannounced with bridal mood boards. They thought I was folding, that I was falling in line. But behind the scenes, I was working. I gave myself 2 weeks. 2 weeks to collect everything I needed. And I started with the house. At dinner one night, I handed Veronica a thank you gift. It was a fancy smart speaker with gold trim and a handwritten card for our future mornings together. She squealed, "This is so thoughtful, Elena." I smiled sweetly. "Just thought you'd enjoy it while planning all your big ideas." What she didn't know, that speaker recorded every word it heard, synced straight to my cloud drive. 2 days later, I installed new security cameras at my house and office. Nathan said nothing when he saw the new system on my door. "Better safe than sorry," I told him. He nodded. Smart. Inside, I placed a small recording device behind a fake succulent on my desk, the same spot where he loved to drop by and chat. "I brought coffee," he'd say, grinning like always. But this time I listened more than I spoke. One afternoon, I caught him muttering into his phone outside my office. I turned up the volume on the camera feed later that night and heard his exact words. "She's softening. Couple more weeks, and I'll have signing power." I sat there, fists clenched, heart steady. But I didn't cry. I labeled the file. Nathan, quote, March 4th. The recordings kept coming. Veronica on the phone with someone I didn't recognize. "She's almost there. Just needs a little more reassurance." These trust fund types always need emotional fluff before they hand things over. Charles, laughing in the background. "Once the paperwork's in, we'll celebrate with champagne, then make her take a break from everything." One night, I called Grayson. "Is this enough?" I asked. "Will it hold?" His voice came firm.
Yes.
"It's enough. But now you have a choice." "What kind of choice?" "You could take it to court, or you could let the truth speak where it'll be loudest." I didn't say anything for a while. Then I whispered, "At the wedding." He didn't object. He just said, "Tell me what you need." I made a list. Projector setup, audio routing, video stitching, secure signal test. I used my company's media team, quietly, through a training request. No one suspected a thing. The night before the wedding, I sent Nathan a text. Thank you for being patient with me. I know I've been distant, but I feel peace now." He replied with a heart emoji and, "Nathan, everything's going to be perfect tomorrow. We made it, babe." I stared at his message for a long time, then opened my laptop and finalized the presentation file. Title slide: The Whitmore Wedding Playbook. Subtitle: How to Trap a Woman and Steal Her Legacy. It was bold, but they'd earned it. That night, I didn't sleep much. I held a warm cup of tea near the window and looked out at the Denver skyline. I thought about my dad, how he'd walk me through warehouse layouts with a pencil behind his ear. I thought about every mile I'd driven alone, every contract I'd memorized line by line, every night I'd stayed late to pay invoices. This company wasn't just business. It was my bloodline, my grit, my proof that I didn't need saving, I only needed space to lead. And they wanted to take that from me?
No.
I'd built this world with my bare hands. And tomorrow, I was going to show them what real power looked like. Not by yelling, not by throwing punches, but by pressing play. The wedding was set at a vineyard just outside Napa, California. One of those places with white barns, draped curtains, and sunset views designed to make photographers cry tears of joy. Veronica picked it, of course. Nathan just nodded along, saying, "Whatever makes Mom happy." I arrived 2 days early, claiming I needed to oversee the florist timeline. No one questioned me. The team was too busy color-matching wine glasses to care why the bride was wandering around with a laptop and USB drive. I met with the venue coordinator quietly and requested access to the main AV system. "It's for a slideshow," I said with a soft smile. "My dad passed a few years ago. I wanted to play a short tribute during the toast." Her eyes softened. "Of course. Just give us the file the morning of the ceremony." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. That night, in my private suite above the tasting hall, I practiced my speech in the mirror. Not the fake one, the real one. But I still didn't know if I'd go through with it. Even after everything, a small voice inside me still asked, "Are you sure? What if this ruins your name? What if they twist it on you?" But then I'd open the recordings again. Charles saying, "Just get her to sign before the honeymoon. After that, we'll restructure things." Veronica murmuring, "This isn't personal. These girls always bounce back." Nathan whispering, "She's not like the others. She's tougher. But I'll get her there." That last one? That was the one that lit the fire back up. He thought he was getting me somewhere. But the truth was, I had never left, and I was done playing small. The day of the wedding arrived bright and warm. Sunlight bathed the hills in soft gold. Guests wore linen suits and pastel dresses. Veronica walked around like royalty, holding a glass of champagne in one hand and barking seating changes with the other. Nathan looked sharp. Nervous, maybe,
but sharp.
He walked up to me before the ceremony, adjusting his tie. "You look beautiful." I smiled. "So do you." He kissed my cheek, and for a second, I almost felt guilty. But then I reminded myself, this wasn't a wedding. It was a heist. I just happened to beat them to the vault. The ceremony was quick. Vows, rings, a kiss. Polite applause. As the sun dipped low and the fairy lights began to glow, guests gathered for the reception under the vineyard canopy. Nathan took the mic after dinner. He tapped it twice, lifted his glass, and smiled. "I just want to say thank you to our family, our friends, and of course, to my brilliant wife." Everyone clapped. He turned toward me. "Elena, your drive inspires me. Your heart grounds me. I can't wait to build forever with you." I stood beside him, took the mic gently, and gave him the softest smile I could manage. "Thank you, Nathan," I said. "And thank you all for being here today. Before we raise a toast to forever, I'd like to share something personal." The coordinator, already prepped, dimmed the lights. Behind us, the large white screen flickered to life. I turned back to the guests and said just one line. "Let's talk about intentions." Then I stepped aside and hit play. The room fell silent before the first clip even played. The projector screen lit up with grainy footage. My living room, late at night. Veronica sat on my couch, sipping tea. Her voice was clear.
"She's almost there," she said.
"Once she signs the account documents, we freeze access for 6 months. Long enough to restructure." A few gasps echoed through the reception tent. Clip 2. Nathan pacing in my office. "I can't push harder," he snapped. "She's asking questions. If I go too fast, she'll get spooked." Veronica's voice again. "Then go slower. Smile more. Touch her shoulder when she talks. Pretend to listen. You're marrying the business, Nathan, not the girl." I stood at the side of the stage, my hands folded in front of me. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. The guests? They weren't so quiet. A low wave of murmurs swept through the room. People shifted in their seats. Some covered their mouths. The next clip played, Charles at his dining room table. "I don't care what her dad built. It's a mid-tier logistics company, not a legacy. If we move fast, we can liquidate before year-end." Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." Then the final one, Nathan's voice in a phone call. "She's not dumb, but she's tired. I can tell. She'll give in. I'll propose expanding the business, then convince her to sign over operational control, like we did with the others." A soft ping signaled the end of the video. The screen faded to black. No music. No applause. Just heavy air and dozens of stunned faces. I stepped forward again, holding a thin manila folder. "In here," I said calmly, "are 3 police reports from women in Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. Each one filed after marrying into this family. Each one lost significant personal assets. Each one was told they were loved right before being erased." I looked directly at Veronica. Her face had drained of color. Charles stood behind her, stiff, jaw clenched. "Nathan?" He didn't even look at me. His eyes were locked on the ground. "I could have disappeared quietly," I said to the room. "I could have let them win. Let them say it was just a bad breakup. But I built this company from the ashes of my father's death. And I don't let thieves sign their names on what I bled to protect." Right on cue, the vineyard gates opened. 2 unmarked police cars pulled up the gravel path. Guests turned in their chairs. Someone gasped. A few stood. 2 officers stepped inside. One headed straight for Charles. Charles Whitmore. Charles stepped back, shaking his head. This is ridiculous. The officer held up a file. You've been named in an active fraud investigation across state lines. You'll need to come with us. Another officer turned to Veronica. You too, ma'am. Veronica screamed. This is harassment. We didn't do anything. You're on camera, I said quietly. Nathan didn't resist. He raised his hand slowly, like a man who had finally run out of words. The officers cuffed all three in front of everyone. One of Nathan's groomsmen stood in stunned silence. Another took out his phone and started recording. I didn't stop him. Let them see it. Let them remember. I walked back to the mic. I apologize for the interruption, I said, voice steady. There will be no cake cutting. No first dance. No bouquet toss. I paused. This marriage is canceled. And with that I turned, not to run, not to cry, but to walk. Out of the tent, out of their trap, and back into my own name. 1 year later, I sat at a quiet cafe in downtown Boulder, Colorado. Same skyline, same coffee aroma. But everything about me was different. Zoe's Deli had just finished morning rush, and I liked coming here before the lunch crowd hit. My new branch office was just 3 blocks away, smaller than Denver's, but it had character. I looked out the window at the crisp fall morning, stirring honey into my tea. This time last year, I was preparing to marry a man who planned to erase me. Now, I was planning the next phase of expansion. I didn't marry anyone, and I didn't need to. That wedding day was supposed to be the start of a new chapter.
Turns out it was. Just not the one they expected.
Nathan's family was charged with multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. The case made headlines in niche business outlets, especially after 3 more women came forward. The media called it a white-collar wedding ring scheme. I called it karma on paper. My inbox had filled with messages from strangers, women who had been pressured, dismissed, and conned. Some had signed things they didn't understand. Others never got the chance to fight back.
So, I started something.
Not just a new office. A new mission. The Carter Foundation, named after my father, now provides legal aid and business protection tools for women inheriting family businesses or facing asset-based manipulation. It's small but growing. And every time I see an email from someone thanking me for helping them say no to pressure, I remember why I did it all. They tried to break me, but I was already built from stronger stuff. People ask me if I regret saying yes to Nathan. If I regret falling in love, trusting too fast. I don't, because that chapter didn't end with heartbreak. It ended with clarity. Nathan's voice still echoes sometimes. You're strong, Elena, but your heart, that's what I want to protect. He said that holding my father's company in one hand and a lie in the other. Turns out he never stood a chance, because I already knew how to protect myself. I had just forgotten for a while. The day after the wedding fallout, I took off my ring, put on my dad's old company jacket, and walked straight into the dispatch yard. My team looked at me like I had just walked through a fire. And maybe I had. But I was still standing, still leading, still Elena. I didn't need a last name change. I didn't need a new partner. I needed to remember who raised me, what I built, and why I never needed rescuing. I finished my tea and looked down at my open planner. This year's theme I'd written across the top: build,
Protect.
rise. A soft breeze passed through the cafe window, and I smiled, because they tried to rewrite my story with fraud, flattery, and fake love. But in the end, they handed me the mic. And this time, I wrote the ending.